Take 3, recording the zodiacal releasing video. I am not responsible enough to change my cameras, so we just have to have it like this. Here's the chart for me recording it. I want to talk about zodiacal releasing, not because I find this technique works for me, it does not work for me, but to get it out of my head so I can move on with my life. I have this document that I was creating that had like a zodiacal releasing and Fradaria, and I was going to put other planetary cycles in it to examine, like helping find what your patterns are so that you can better prepare, not catastrophize, but prepare for those patterns in your life and like have compassion for the cycles of your life. And so this one was focusing on zodiacal releasing. Zodiacal releasing is a Time Lord technique where you break down your life into time periods or time windows, and then each of those time periods can be further broken down into smaller time periods. And we use Time Lords based on the different rulerships. So, with zodiacal releasing specifically, we have something called a peak period. And based on that peak period, you can get like a rhythm through your life based on different topics, basic themes like what's going to happen to you, what you're going to end up doing, love and relationships, that kind of thing. Fortune is fate, and it befalls you. It just happens to you. You have to react to it or not, depending on your chart. But this is stuff that happens to you. You didn't start it, you didn't initiate it, you didn't cause it to come about, yet you're in that situation. Spirit is will, and it is your action. So the things that inspire you to like, no, I am going to go after that. I am going to do this. The stuff that you did start, the stuff that you did make happen. This is going to be your lot of spirit. And then the lot of eros, or your relationships, the differences in your relationships. And so I have all of this ideas that I made this document into. One of the documents that helped me realize I don't like making these kind of documents, which we're going to go over together. And yeah, my disclaimer is that I do not find that zodiacal releasing works for me. I do think I understand the technique, and I have gone after it over and over and over, and I just have not been able, I have had to search for a pattern and have not been able to find one. And then I tried Fradaria, and the first time I tried Fradaria, like understanding this technique properly, it clicked. There were so many patterns, they just popped out at me. And so that's what we're looking for, right? It should be unambiguous, the patterns that you see. So, when we're looking at zodiacal releasing, it's very tempting. So, this website is zodiacalreleasing.net, and it usually will default to releasing from the lot of spirit. So, you have to scroll down to lot of fortune if you want lot of fortune. And the nice part about this website is it's very clean. You don't have to click anything to get what you want except to scroll through which lot it is. The whole website is just zodiacal releasing. And it has this analysis in here, which we want when we're assessing the different periods to kind of see how they're going to go. So it's very tempting when we first encounter this technique, and many time lord techniques that have definitive periods, to look at the periods and use the dates first, which I call like an astrology first approach, or like a calendar first approach, and to look at like this time period. So I would be looking at July of 2006 to July of 2007, and just thinking of like all the events that happened in this time period, and then looking at the next year and the next time period, and so on, and trying to find events that might correlate into those time periods to look for a pattern. The issue with this is that you will misremember. You will be seeking so hard and like be so excited to find a pattern that your brain will just be like, here you go, here's a memory from that summer, but it was actually like 2 years before. You will very easily misremember. So, like, I've got all these dates written out and I'm trying to understand the technique. Um, and then I just was listing dates and going over and over the dates. Um, and this is not the only like journal entry I have on zodiacal releasing. I have gone after this technique and I have not found it to work, especially when I look at the dates, because yeah, I will just kind of concoct stuff to make something fit. And so I don't really recommend going by the dates. But maybe you look at the dates and the pattern is obvious, and that means this technique is for you. So the other way you can do this is by going by experience. And so I just have like a little tangent to go on experience. The issue I have with a lot of the like qualitative numbering systems that some of the medieval periods use, where you like add points and subtract points to figure out like who's powerful or like what kind of the quality the planet is going to have, is that life isn't just good or bad, it's like a matrix. And so we would need like proper like mathematical functions or whatever, because you would like want to see like the shapes of things over time. And so we would need this matrix of like two axes to compare, and like a convenient axes that Chris Brennan from the Astrology podcast has provided is the idea of subjective and objective, good and bad. So I've got that here at the very bottom. It's like a few. This Google, why do you do this? So I have this here, which will be in the worksheet, and then I have it somewhere else in here where I'm like listed out ways to think of your experience, which not necessarily even for zodiacal releasing, but just in general when you're looking back at experiences to be like, is that good or bad? Um, where do I have all this stuff? Yeah, good and bad. I have it there as well. Experience first, reflection. Okay. Um, where are we? So we can go down there. So we could have like, the y-axis could be like objective. So this is like what anyone would see. So let's say winning the lottery. Winning the lottery is objectively good. Anyone would say, that's awesome. You won the lottery. Someone who has a subjective experience that's good, you know, in the good quadrant, um, winning the lottery helped them pay off their debt and they bought their mom a house and it set them up for the rest of their life. They won the lottery. It was awesome, obviously. Someone who had a subjectively bad experience, you know, maybe they overspent or they got into massive amounts of debt because of winning the lottery, or they got into like really bad crowds and habits and they owe people money, or they tasted a lifestyle that they quickly outspent themselves from and will never obtain again. So now there's like a bitterness and a resentment in their life. And so that would be like, sure, objectively, everyone thinks it was good, but it was a bad time, right? And then objectively, something that's bad could be like your parents dying, right? That's going to happen to everyone. That's sad. Maybe your parent was really abusive and them dying frees you to be able to like self develop and actualize and like live your own life in a way that was not possible when they were around, like Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died, right? So a subjectively good experience, like everyone's like, oh my god, that's so bad, but like privately inside you're like, nope, actually, like I am having a rebound effect from being freed of this relationship, which for one reason or another was just like more harm than it was help, Or, if that sounds horrific to you, a subjectively bad experience when your parent died would be like, yeah, my parents are dead and I'm devastated, and it doesn't really get better. We just go on. And there is no silver lining there, except for that you had a good relationship with your parents to mourn, right? And so that gives us a bit more to work with than, yeah, it's good or bad. So we can use that kind of framework for all of our reflections into the past, or into like what something is going to be, how might it turn out, because everybody has a different like inner world and inner experience going on. So just to say, oh, this is going to be good and that's going to be bad, well, we can't really always supply that kind of narrative to events or transits, or even like objective facts that you know about in someone's life. You've got to see how was it for them. So that's one way you can also apply experience first. You can apply that matrix to specifically when things happen to you and they were bad and then turned out good, or like an objectively bad thing happened to you that you thought was good. When you made things happen, that you started something you thought would be great and it turned out bad, or started great and it turned out great, or you thought it was good but everyone else was like that was a failure, and you're like, no, that was a really good experience that I made happen, right? Or you can think about the different chapters of your relationships, when things started, when things ended, when really things shifted, when you shifted as a person to be in relationship with. That one might be easier to track because relationships kind of have more hard dates than kind of the rest of life combined. However, this is not how it worked for me. And so, how you can see how was it for you with zodiacal releasing is, instead of looking at the dates, instead of using the website and figuring out what it should be, instead of looking at the technique and looking at your peak periods and trying to figure out like what should be happening, you're gonna put all that away. You're gonna close all that, and you're just going to think about. You're gonna journal, or you're gonna get a whiteboard or whatever. You're gonna try and think about some time that was amazing. And so we can break this down specific to zodiacal releasing. So up here in experience first reflection, I have just some examples on some prompts on how to start reflecting on certain qualities of time. And so for the lot of fortune, the fate that befalls us, it's like things that happened. So you're going to start thinking about like, what are some random things that happened to me? Like, when it's not like I made that happen, I started it, I initiated it. When did things just happen that I had to react to? When did life happen to me? And then you can, spread that out into what were the super random awesome times, like when did something just happen and it was great, turned into a great story you still tell, or a great memory. And then what were the surprisingly terrible times, something just happened out of nowhere and it sucked. um, and then a different way to word this, the fate that befalls, things that just happen, is when are times that something happened without me having to do anything to make it come about, right? So good then, good now, good then, bad now, bad then, good now, bad then, bad now, right? And we could reframe that into objectively and subjectively good and bad. Things that happened that were subjectively good, I thought they were great. That were subjectively bad, I think they're terrible. That were objectively good, measurably or even communally good, other people are like, that's good, right? Um, and objectively bad, measurably bad, like a decrease in health, or like you lose a limb, you lose your house. Things that anybody would say would be bad. But maybe it leads to spiritual realization, or you finally understand like your values because you were like aimless before and you didn't really care about anything before, and now you care about a whole bunch of stuff, or however it works out. And then another way to look at that is when are random times that happened, and then with the peak periods that happen with zodiacal releasing, random things that happened that led up to something, random things that happened that pivoted or had a peak impact on my life, and random things that happened that resolved something, that helped something close down, or whatever the follow through period means for you in your zodiacal releasing. Um, so Yeah, that's the basics that I had for zodiacal releasing, and then we get into like glyph creation. Why? Why not? And you slowly calibrate yourself to like a visual representation of the zodiacal releasing technique. Okay, that is what I wanted to share. So let me explain. So, creating a glyph. This is the chart I made this document with. If you make a traditional chart on AstroSeek, you can get the lots in here, and you can display the lots on the calendar as well, or they're listed here on the side. So we're looking for the lot of fortune because the lot of fortune always denotes a peak period. So in this chart, lot of fortune is in Cancer. So we write out the zodiac, we put the lot of fortune under Cancer, and that means that all of our cardinal signs, because Cancer is a cardinal sign, all of our cardinal signs are now peak periods. So we're going to put a little peak over top, right? And then, because the peak period denotes before it a build-up period and after it a resolution or a follow-through period, we could have little symbols that denote that as well. So Aries is a peak period, and then we have the follow-through. We have a build-up, peak, follow-through, and we carry that on. And then we could maybe translate this idea into something more evocative, something that makes us feel something more than these symbols here. Like peak is a mountain peak. The follow through is like a nap, maybe you're having a lot of rest time. And the build up is this little like stock graph going up, like things are building. It's the story graph. We're getting character development. Like the plot is moving so that we can have the next peak moment, right? The next catharsis, the next climax or anticlimactic moment that you then have a resolution for. So this is the premise of zodiac releasing. Wherever the lot of fortune is your peak period. The signs before the same modality of the peak period will all be build-ups. Same modality will all be peaks as the lot of fortune. Doesn't matter what you're releasing from, doesn't matter if you're looking at lot of spirit or if you're looking at lot of eros, your peak periods are all lot of fortune because this is how life happens to you. And the follow through is going to be the next sign. So in this chart, or in any chart with lot of fortune in a cardinal sign, all of the mutable signs are buildups, all of the cardinal signs are peak periods, and all of the fixed signs are follow through periods. Okay? Now, what if we qualified this? Because there's another layer to zodiacal releasing where you're adding in the benefic and malefic of sect, because they have a qualifying effect on a chart. So you need to know if you have a day chart or a night chart. And a day chart, we want to look more specifically at where is Jupiter, where is Mars. And for a night chart, we want to look more specifically for where is Saturn, where is Venus. These are all for the example chart. All right, so for this example chart, where we've got a lot of fortune in Cancer, is this a day chart or a night chart? It's a night chart because sun is down here under the horizon, right? So it's a night chart. We could also look at the time, and this is like 3 a.m., so that's a nighttime. So nighttime, we care about where Saturn is. Saturn's up here, what, in the very beginning? 2 degrees of Pisces. And Venus is down here in Leo. We care about also maybe where the luminaries are. So we can come down to our chart here where we've got our peak period or follow through period and then a build up period, and we've qualified it a little bit. So the peak period is red. Why do I have it be red? Because we have a malefic in our cardinal sign. So lot of fortune is in a cardinal sign. So all the cardinal signs will kind of be activated by squares or oppositions. Who else is in a cardinal sign? Mars. So that's going to add a little bit of heat. So why not make that red, right? And then our build-up times are mutable. So that's our ascendant, our sect light, empty, Saturn, and spirit. So this is like it's a bit of a mixed bag because Saturn's here putting a stop to something. A lot of spirit is here providing some will, some like desire to act. Ascendant and Sun are here again having that inner will. So I don't know how we want to qualify that one. And then the follow through period is going to be the fixed sign. So in the fixed sign we have Venus, so that's lovely. We might make that blue automatically because Venus is here. And Moon, so that's nice as well. Fixed Scorpio. Scorpio is empty, so that's okay. Aquarius is empty, so that's okay. Taurus has Jupiter, so that's nice as well. So fixed periods are probably going to be the best period for this chart because we've got both benefics and the moon and no malefics. So like that's pretty nice, right? Um so let's go back down to where I was qualifying it. So I have my peak periods be red because Mars is involved and they're exciting in their peak. So like let's combine those two ideas. The follow through fixed periods are blue because Venus and Jupiter and the moon are there. So why not? Let's make that, as a soothing opposing color to the red of the peak period. Let's make it a nice blue. And then that mixed bag of like, I don't really know how to treat the build up period is we've got a whole bunch of will between the ascendant, the sun, the lot of spirit, and then Saturn, who is also the malefic out of sect. So that's kind of like a double whammy. And so it might kind of feel like a gridlock. And so the ways that zodiacal releasing might work for this chart, if I understand the technique properly, and if this glyph system has any merit, um, is that it might be like I feel like a stalemate, or there's all this desire pushed against like what you should do or what you ought to do or the way things are, and then it just releases. You just have to do it. Between Mars and the cardinal signs, it just happens. And then it actually turns out a lot better than you might think with all of that, like, well, you shouldn't, well, Saturnian, finger waving, well. And then bam, you do it. You can't not do it anymore. It just has to happen. And then it turns out pretty okay. And then you have another new round of like, well, I shouldn't do that either. I mean, I know that worked out, but like, what if this doesn't work out? And then bam, you do it. And it does work out. And that doesn't mean blow past this tense build up period. Like you need to build up so that the pressure pops, right? Um, so that's one way to qualify it. And then again, what if we made it more evocative using this qualifying information we have about the sect planets and where they may be with our signs, which again, on the zodiacalreleasing.net site, a lot of those qualifiers are in here. Contains Venus in sect benefic. We care about that. Out of sect benefic. Out of sect malefic. This is my chart. This is a different chart from the example chart, so I don't want to confuse you, so we'll come back. Okay, so we'll go back down. So we've colored these glyphs now to add like a bit of flavor to just the shape. But we could take those emojis we had before, we're like a mountain, and then we're resting, and then we're building, and we can add more nuance to that now. So the mountain is still the mountain, it's a peak, right? Cardinal, Capricorn's in there, that's great. Mars is in there, he likes to climb mountains, fine. And then we have this beautiful star because Jupiter and Venus and the moon, like what a sparkly trio of planets to all be operating together like in sequence in the chapters of your life. Beautiful. And then this green stop sign because we have all the will of the lot of spirit and the ascendant and the sun and then Saturn, which is like Sun is also the out of sect malefic. And he's not with the sun, so it's nighttime and he's just up in the cold dark sky away from the heat of the sun. He doesn't like that, you know? And so we've got all these nice good things going on with our mutable periods because of what is activated mutably in the chart, the ascendant, the sun, the lot of spirit. But then we also have Saturn, who is like kind of a bruiser in this chart because of the out of sect malefic, and he's away from the sun, which he doesn't like to be, like if he's got to be in a night chart. He does like to be up in the sky though, so it's a little bit of a green stop sign because we don't know, right? And then you could, so let's say this was very helpful. You could just add your placements under. Like you could have this whole thing, like you just have this on your wall if you wanted to, you know? And then we can take these shapes or these simple glyphs and we can create more of a matrix. So we look at, now is where we want to look at the dates. So we're going to come back in here and we're going to create like a little matrix where we've got our L1, L2, L3, and then a changing L4, right? So predominantly, this is a busy time, and the sub flavors of the busy time are it's all right, right? We've got all that nice blue energy that we already qualified from taking our peak follow through build up periods and adding some literal color to them based on what is actually happening in the chart. And then we could translate that into our emojis. So overall, yet we're in a peak period. It doesn't mean good, it doesn't mean bad, it just means we're at a height of something. We're at the peak. Things are moving, life is happening. And right now, as opposed to a busy, 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 busy time, or a busy, 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 maybe frustrating time, yearning time, it's a busy, busy, busy golden time because we have Venus, Jupiter, and the moon working together. This is all using almost exclusively just the chart information. So this would be an astrology first example of creating, qualifying these glyphs. If you had noticed a pattern already looking at the dates, you should hopefully already have also noticed some kind of qualifying theme to that pattern. Good time, bad time, build up, stressful, tenseful, anticipatory, relieving, resolving, different words that you can also apply to like the story structure, the story narrative structure, which I feel applies to zodiacal releasing well. Um, but you would still want to further qualify these shapes and colors and these glyphs or emojis or whatever art you use, whatever symbols you use, to not just reflect what the chart says should be happening, but also bringing your own experience. And if by going through all of the dates and trying to think of different qualifying times, you should hopefully, be aware of, is it a sparkly time when Jupiter, Venus, and Moon all operate together, or is it a really, really emotional time, right? Do you go through a lot of emotional change because the moon is in there as well? And then here is a worksheet involved where you can break down all of your planets also using the ruler to be like, how is that place doing? And then your overall impression of like what's going on with the cardinal signs. And then does that change your glyph? Does that change the symbol or the representation you want to use for what is happening in a cardinal sign? And is it a peak period, a follow through period, a build up period? And then we can do that for each bundle of signs. So now, before I move into the craft idea, I want to explore this experience first idea of how to access astrology, because this is, or how to access zodiacal releasing and astrology in general, because this is the only pattern I was able to find in zodiacal releasing because I went through the dates. I've been through them. This is not my only journal entry about zodiacal releasing. I've been after this thing. Um, And so, what I found worked is you want to think of different times in your life that, again, we've already done this a couple times, thinking about, what was good and then bad later, or what did other people think were good but you thought were bad, or what just kind of happened to you that worked out or didn't work out. The only pattern I've been able to find with zodiacal releasing is I decided to look through, like I did a journal session where I just decided to think of different times where I was like flying. I was on cloud nine, everything was coming up roses. Maybe the people around me were like, you're glowing, like what's happening? Like it was almost out of character how up I was. And when I assembled all those dates, what I found was these were all Gemini and largely culminating periods. culminating Gemini periods, which I would have no reason to anticipate that Gemini would be a good place in my chart because I have Gemini in the eighth house. And like, why would the eighth house be a good place? I also have Mercury in the third house. So like Mercury can't even see the eighth house. So like why would it be, if anything, I would expect it to be in an extra bad place for me because I don't like the ruler can't see it, so why would it be positive? Well, my malefic of sect is in domicile Capricorn in the third house with Mercury. So as one of the only places that Saturn deposits but cannot see, it's like the double negative made it a place of relief from Saturn's like impositions, right? So that's the only pattern I have been able to find with zodiacal releasing. Every other pattern I am forcing to make fit. This is the only one. And now, since I've learned that when I am having a pretty up day, when things are just flowing, when I'm feeling good, sometimes I'll go check and I'll see, oh, what kind of period am I in? And it's Gemini culminating. And so that's pretty cool. That's cool to know. That is not enough for me to track zodiacal releasing and like build something out of, because I also wouldn't want to track a Gemini culminating period and put all this expectation that it's going to be up and free and floating and then have it be down and like further be frustrated with the zodiacal releasing technique. Okay, so that is all of my preamble about the technique, and it all results in wanting to share this idea I had for making like one of these like little block calendars. So you would still have to have a list of when your L4 and L3 changed over, but what if you had like a little stack block where you had four little blocks in a row and they had like I guess three glyphs on them. I don't know. You could have anyway, but you could have blocks and then whenever your L4 changed, you would like change the block over, and over time you would build like an association with like the time you're having and the life you're living and the experiences you're having with how these little symbols that you've developed, these are like the qualified symbols, but again you could make like emojis or pictures or like art for it. That they would inform each other, right? And then every, couple of years you could update your glyphs to better reflect what being in that time period, that type of time lord period means for you. And then as they accumulate, you can better get a judge for like what the kind of day you're going to have over time as you like see the shapes, you see the glyphs, you live your life, you update them over time, and you slowly calibrate yourself to like a visual representation of the zodiacal releasing technique. Okay, that is what I wanted to share. Great, we did it. Peace out.